The afternoon started like any other for the young girl. She had stepped out of a small convenience store with a cold drink in her hand, planning to walk straight home. The street was busy, but calm, with people minding their own business. She was just adjusting the strap of her backpack when she suddenly heard a firm voice behind her. "Excuse me, you're there?" Stop for a moment. She turned around, confused, and saw two police officers walking toward her. Their faces looked serious, as if something important had just happened. She looked around, wondering who they were talking to. But it became clear they meant her. One officer asked for her name and ID. She quickly nodded and handed it over. Trying to stay polite even though she didn't understand what was going on. She had never been in trouble before, never even spoken to police like this. Her hands were slightly shaky, not because she was guilty, because the whole situation felt too sudden. The officers didn't explain much. They just kept exchanging looks while checking her ID, as if they had already decided she was connected to something. She softly asked, "Did something happen?" Her voice was low, almost unsure. The older officer replied, "We just need to ask you a few questions. Cooperate and everything will be fine." She nodded again, but inside, her heart was racing. People walking by slowed down, staring at her like she must have done something wrong. She tried her best to stay calm, but she felt small under all those eyes. The officers began asking questions that felt strange to her. They asked where she had been in the last half hour, whether she had visited another store nearby, whether she had been talking to someone in a blue jacket. The questions came one after another, and she struggled to answer quickly because she was nervous. "I was just at home," she said softly. "I came to buy a drink." The officers didn't look convinced. They kept repeating things like, "Are you sure?" and "Think carefully." Their tone felt more like they were accusing her than trying to understand her. She felt like even her honest answers sounded wrong to them because of how tense she was. One officer told her that a person who looked very similar to her had been involved in a small incident near another store. She didn't understand what incident they were talking about, but the officer's strict voice made her freeze. "I don't know anything about that," she whispered. Instead of listening, they looked at each other again, as if she had just said something suspicious. They walked a few steps away to talk privately. She stood there alone on the sidewalk, holding her backpack tightly, wishing she could just disappear from the moment. Cars passed by. People walked around her, but she felt like she was trapped in one place. The officers returned and continued asking more questions. Each time she tried to explain, one of them interrupted, making her more anxious. At one point, the younger officer leaned slightly closer and said, "If you just tell us what happened, this will be easier." She didn't know how to respond. Tell them what? She hadn't done anything. But she could see they weren't believing her. Her eyes started to water, not from guilt, but from helplessness. She tried not to cry, biting her lip to stay strong. She reached for her phone, thinking she should call her mother just to let her know what was happening. But the moment she held it up, the officer quickly said, "Put your phone away for now. You don't need it." Her heart dropped. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that. She looked down and slipped her phone back into her pocket. She felt even more powerless now, as if she wasn't allowed to protect herself in any way. The officers told her they might have to take her to the station for further checking. The way they said it made her feel even more scared. She knew she hadn't done anything wrong, but she also knew that being taken to the station would only make things worse. People already looked at her like she was guilty. She didn't want her family to panic. She gathered whatever courage she had left and said softly, "Can I please call my mom?" But again they dismissed her, saying it wasn't necessary yet. Their tone was not angry, but cold, like they didn't care how frightened she was. She felt tears slowly gather again, but she blinked them away. She didn't want the officers to think she was being dramatic. She stood straight, trying to show she was cooperating, even though inside she felt like she had no control at all. One passerby glanced at her with concern, but didn't stop. Everyone else pretended they didn't see what was happening. That made her feel even more alone. The officer stepped away to make a radio call. She couldn't hear what they were saying, but their serious expressions made her stomach twist. She wondered how things had gone so wrong when she had simply gone to buy a drink. Her mind raced with questions. What if they took her to the station? What if they didn't let her call her mom? What if no one believed her? While the officers were talking, she quietly pulled out her phone again. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type. She hit the call button for her mother. The phone rang only once before one officer noticed. "Hey, what did we just say?" "Put that down," he said sharply. Startled, she lowered her hand quickly. But the call had already gone through for a split second. Her mother heard her daughter's shaky breathing before the line cut off. That tiny moment was enough to tell her something was wrong. The officers took the phone from the girl completely this time and put it in their pocket, saying they would return it later. She swallowed hard, trying not to panic. She could only hope her mother understood. Meanwhile, the officers resumed their questioning. Their tone suggested they believed they were doing everything correctly. But they weren't paying attention to the fact that the girl they were questioning was just a teen who was scared out of her mind. She tried once more to explain what she had been doing that day, where she had gone, how she had walked straight from her home to the store. But the officers kept challenging her answers, pointing out tiny pauses or nervousness, as if they were signs of dishonesty. Her breathing became uneven. She stared at the ground, wishing the moment would end. Every second felt heavier than the last. Her eyes kept drifting toward the road, hoping her mother would appear. Even though she knew she hadn't been able to say anything clearly, the officers continued making notes, checking something on their device, and discussing whether they should proceed with further verification. Their words made her chest tighten. Just when she felt she couldn't handle one more question, she heard the sound of a car stopping abruptly. She didn't look up at first. She was too scared to hope. But then she heard a familiar voice, a strong, worried voice that cut through everything around her. Her mother was there. The moment the girl heard her mother's voice, something inside her relaxed, even if only a little. She had never been so relieved in her life. She turned her head slowly and saw her mother rushing toward her, breathless eyes wide with worry. It was clear she had come as fast as she could. The officers looked surprised. They hadn't expected anyone to show up so quickly. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably while the older one straightened up, trying to appear in control of the situation. The mother didn't waste a second. She stepped between her daughter and the officers and gently placed a hand on her daughter's arm, as if making sure she was really there. The girl leaned slightly against her, feeling a safety she had been missing the whole time. "What is going on here?" the mother asked in a calm but firm voice. It wasn't loud, but it carried enough strength that even the officers paused before answering. The older officer spoke first, trying to sound confident. "We're investigating an incident nearby. She matches the description, so we stopped her for questioning." The mother's eyebrows tightened. "Description of who? And what exactly happened?" "It's just routine," the officer replied quickly. "We're still checking." The mother looked at her daughter's face, seeing the fear and confusion that had built up. Then she turned back to the officers. "You have been questioning her without telling her why, and without letting her call me?" The younger officer cleared his throat, looking slightly uncomfortable. She wasn't cooperating properly. "We needed to clarify a few things before making any phone calls." The mother shook her head slowly, clearly unimpressed. Her voice remained steady, but there was a firmness in it that made the officers stand straighter. "She is a minor. You are not allowed to take her phone or keep her from contacting me unless there is a serious danger. She is standing in public with a drink in her hand. Nothing about this looks dangerous." The officers exchanged a quick look. The tone of the situation had shifted. They had been treating the girl like someone who could be pushed aside or ignored, but her mother clearly wasn't going to be treated the same way. The mother asked, "Did you check the exact description properly?" The younger officer hesitated before answering. "We received a report. Someone said a girl wearing similar clothing was involved in a disturbance near another store." "What kind of disturbance?" she asked. The officers paused. Neither seemed ready to explain clearly. The mother sighed and reached into her bag. She pulled out her phone and tapped her screen a few times. "My daughter was at home 15 minutes before she left for the store. I have a smart camera in the living room. It sends me notifications whenever someone walks by. She walked out at the exact time she told you." She held up her screen, showing them a time-stamped clip. The girl was seen grabbing her backpack and heading out the door calmly. Both officers leaned slightly closer. Their confidence softened. The mother continued, and here's her route. I can track her phone because of our family app. She came directly here. She didn't go anywhere else. The officers stared at the screen longer than they needed to. They were looking for a way to defend themselves, for a reason to say they had still acted correctly. But nothing came out of their mouths. The evidence was too clear. The mother didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult them. She simply asked, "Now tell me why was she treated like a suspect? Why was she not allowed to call me? And why did you take her phone?" The older officer adjusted his belt, avoiding eye contact. "There may have been a misunderstanding. We only wanted to confirm her identity and location." The mother replied sharply, "You could have done that without scaring her." Her daughter squeezed her hand gently, holding back tears. She wasn't crying out of fear anymore. She was crying out of relief. At that moment, a neighbor from down the street happened to walk by. He recognized the girl and stopped. "Is everything okay?" he asked, looking concerned. The mother explained briefly what had happened. The neighbor shook his head. "I saw her leave home not long ago. She couldn't have been involved in anything. I was outside fixing my gate. She just walked past quietly." He told the officers the exact time he saw her, which matched the mother's recordings perfectly. Now the officers were really uncomfortable. The younger one shifted his weight from foot to foot. The older one scratched his chin, trying to look thoughtful instead of guilty. The mother said, "I understand you have a job to do, but what happened here was not professional. You made assumptions. You scared her, and you didn't even verify things properly before stopping her." The girl looked up at her mother, amazed by how strong and steady she was. She wished she could speak like that. Maybe one day. The officers finally returned the girl's phone. The older one extended it awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. "Here we, apologize if there was any miscommunication." The word miscommunication made the mother's jaw tighten, but she didn't argue. She knew pushing them too hard right now would only create more excuses. Instead, she said, "Next time, verify first before treating a child like she's guilty." The younger officer nodded quickly. "Of course, we just wanted to be safe." The mother responded politely, but firmly. Safety also includes treating people respectfully, especially young people who don't know how to defend themselves in these situations. The girl felt a gentle squeeze on her shoulder. Her mother's reassurance made her breathe easier. She realized how powerful it was to have someone stand up for her. The officers backed away slightly, trying to end the conversation without any further trouble. "We'll update the system that she is not the person we're looking for. You're free to go, free to go." The words sounded simple, but they meant everything to the girl after everything she had felt in the last half hour. As the officers walked back toward their car, they spoke quietly to each other, clearly embarrassed. They had approached the situation with confidence, but they were leaving with a different kind of expression, one that showed they had been confronted with their own mistakes. The girl clung to her mother's arm as they began to walk away. Her legs felt weak from the stress, but her mother walked slowly beside her. After a few steps, the mother stopped and turned to her daughter. "Are you okay?" The girl nodded, though her voice trembled a little when she said, "I was really scared." Her mother pulled her close for a moment. "I know, but you did nothing wrong. And I won't let anything happen to you." They walked together down the sidewalk, leaving the scene behind. The air felt lighter now, as if the tightness around her chest was finally loosening. She could breathe again as they continued walking. The girl told her mother everything that had happened, the questions, the way the officers spoke, how they took her phone, how she tried to stay calm. Her mother listened carefully, not interrupting once. She didn't want to make her daughter feel like she was exaggerating. She knew every small detail mattered. When they reached home, the girl sat on the couch and took a long, deep breath. She still felt the shaking inside her, but at least she was safe now. Her mother brought her a glass of water and sat beside her. "Next time, if something like this happens, which I hope it never does, you call me. Even if they tell you not to," her mother said. The girl nodded slowly. "I tried. You heard me? Just for a second." Her mother smiled softly. That second was enough. I knew something was wrong. The girl felt a warmth in her chest. She didn't have many words to say, but she felt grateful. The fear she had felt earlier was slowly fading, replaced by relief. Later that evening, her mother made a decision. She planned to file a formal complaint about what happened, not out of anger, but to make sure the officers learned from the situation. She didn't want another teen to go through the same thing. The girl didn't know if she was ready to revisit the memory again, but she trusted her mother. Whatever happened next, she knew she wouldn't be alone. By the time night fell, she finally felt calm enough to sleep. Her mother checked on her once more before closing the door gently. The girl hugged her pillow and whispered to herself, "I'm okay now." What had begun as a frightening moment on a quiet street ended with a powerful reminder. Sometimes the strongest protection doesn't come from authority. It comes from a parent who refuses to stay silent when their child is treated unfairly.